Welcome to the Silenced History channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos. In the 1970s, this unsettling photograph shows Jeffrey Dahmer during his high school years at Revere High School in Ohio, interacting with a fellow student near school lockers. Dahmer would later become one of America's most notorious serial killers, murdering 17 young men and boys between 1978 and 1991. His crimes involved cannibalism, necrophilia, and dismemberment. This image captures the deceptive normalcy of his teenage years before his descent into horrific violence that shocked the world. In the 1970s, this chilling photograph shows Ted Bundy interacting with neighborhood children, demonstrating the deceptive charm that made him one of America's most notorious serial killers. Bundy murdered at least 30 young women across multiple states between 1974 and 1978, using his clean-cut appearance and manipulative personality to lure victims. This image captures the disturbing duality of a man who appeared normal and trustworthy while secretly being a psychopathic predator. In the early 1900s, this unsettling photograph shows a Victorian-era doll designed with two faces, one appearing to sleep, while the other displays a more alert expression. These topsy-turvy or flip dolls were popular children's toys that could be turned upside down to reveal different facial expressions or characters. The eerie aesthetic reflects the period's fascination with optical illusions and mechanical novelties, though modern viewers often find these antique toys disturbing. This eerie photograph captures children in homemade Halloween costumes during the 1930s, showcasing the distinctly unsettling aesthetic of Depression-era celebrations. The handcrafted masks and costumes, made from available materials during economically difficult times, created genuinely frightening appearances that contrast sharply with modern commercial Halloween decorations. These improvised disguises reflect the resourcefulness of families during the Great Depression while maintaining Halloween's traditional emphasis on fear and mystery. In 1986, this haunting photograph shows the abandoned remains of a kindergarten classroom in Pripyat, following the Chernobyl nuclear disaster. The deteriorating red chair with a doll sitting among decay symbolizes the sudden evacuation that left an entire city frozen in time. Over 50,000 residents fled within days, leaving behind personal belongings that now serve as eerie reminders of the world's worst nuclear accident and its lasting impact on human lives. In the early 1900s, this eerie photograph captures Glasgow School of Art students performing in an avant-garde theatrical piece, wearing unsettling white masks and dark robes. The haunting scene demonstrates the experimental artistic movements emerging in Scottish art education during this period. These dramatic performances reflected the influence of symbolism and expressionism on young artists, who explored themes of identity, anonymity, and psychological states through disturbing visual presentations that challenged conventional artistic boundaries. In the 1880s, this photograph shows Ella Harper, known as the Camel Girl, who was born with congenital genu recurvatum, a rare orthopedic condition causing her knees to bend backward. This condition forced Harper to walk on all fours like a camel, leading to her stage name. She performed with various circuses and sideshows, including W.H. Harris's Nickel Plate Circus, where she earned substantial income from her unique condition before retiring to pursue education and a normal life. In the 1880s, this Victorian photograph shows Fanny Mills, known as the Ohio Bigfoot Girl, who suffered from Milroy's disease, a rare genetic condition causing severe lymphatic swelling in her feet and legs. Born in 1860, Mills's feet measured 19 inches long and 7 inches wide, requiring custom-made size 30 shoes. She performed in P.T. Barnum's Circus and various sideshows, becoming a popular attraction while earning money to support her family despite the physical challenges of her condition. In the 1880s, this Victorian photograph shows Annie Jones, 1865 to 1902, America's most famous bearded lady, who performed with P.T. Barnum's Circus from infancy. Born in Virginia with hypertrichosis, a rare genetic condition causing excessive hair growth, Jones was exhibited by Barnum starting at 9 months old for $150 weekly. She became the country's top bearded attraction and advocated for sideshow performers, working to eliminate derogatory language from the industry before dying of tuberculosis in 1902. In the early 1900s, this medical photograph documents Jean Libera, known as the double-bodied man, who was born with a parasitic twin named Jacques attached to his chest and stomach area. This rare congenital condition called parasitic twinning occurs when one twin fails to fully separate during development. Libera performed in circus sideshows across Europe and America, where audiences paid to witness this extraordinary medical anomaly that fascinated both the public and medical professionals. In the 1860s, this Victorian carte de visite photograph shows a person with dwarfism posed elegantly in a formal studio setting. The subject wears fashionable period clothing and stands confidently beside ornate furniture, reflecting the Victorian era's fascination with photographing people with unusual physical characteristics. Such portraits were often sold as curiosities or collected as entertainment, documenting how society viewed and commercialized physical differences during this period of early photography and circus culture. In 1937, this disturbing photograph documents the marriage of 22-year-old Charlie Johns to 9-year-old Eunice Winstead in Tennessee, representing the tragic reality of child marriage that was legal in many U.S. states during this era. The image shows Johns reading to his child bride, highlighting the grotesque power imbalance and abuse inherent in such unions. This case exemplifies how legal systems historically failed to protect children from exploitation, with many states only raising minimum marriage ages in recent decades. This disturbing photograph documents the deplorable conditions at a psychiatric hospital in Deir el-Qamar, Lebanon, in 1982, where child patients were bound and restrained to radiators as a form of treatment. The image exposes the systematic abuse and neglect of vulnerable children with mental health conditions, highlighting the lack of proper psychiatric care and human rights protections in institutional settings during this period. In 1900, this disturbing photograph documents the brutal treatment of mental patients in French asylums, where individuals were chained and restrained against walls as a form of therapy. The patient's arms are stretched wide and secured with restraints in what was considered standard psychiatric care during this era. This image exposes the inhumane conditions that existed before modern understanding of mental health, when institutions relied on physical punishment rather than compassionate treatment for psychological disorders. In 1901, this shocking photograph shows Blanche Monnier after her rescue from 25 years of captivity, during which her aristocratic mother and brother kept her locked in a tiny, windowless room in Poitiers, France. Discovered weighing only 55 pounds and lying in her own filth, the 52-year-old woman had been imprisoned since age 25 for refusing an arranged marriage. This case exposed the extreme lengths families would go to control women's choices in Victorian society. In 2015, this tragic screenshot captures journalist Alison Parker moments before she and cameraman Adam Ward were fatally shot during a live television broadcast in Virginia. The 24-year-old reporter was conducting an on-air interview when a disgruntled former colleague opened fire, killing both media professionals. This shocking incident highlighted the dangers faced by journalists and sparked national discussions about workplace violence and gun safety in America. This tragic photograph captures the final moments of two Colombian soldiers during a 2019 air show accident when their rappelling rope suddenly snapped during a demonstration. The soldiers maintained military discipline by giving a final salute as they fell, demonstrating extraordinary courage and professionalism, even in the face of certain death. This heartbreaking image became a symbol of military honor and sacrifice in Colombia. In 1990, this tragic photograph shows magician Joe Burris being lowered into a grave-like pit in a plastic casket during what would become his final performance. The 32-year-old entertainer attempted to recreate Harry Houdini's famous buried alive escape trick, but the makeshift casket collapsed under the weight of wet concrete and dirt poured on top. Burris suffocated before rescue crews could reach him, making this one of magic's most deadly accidents caught on camera. This tragic photograph from 2014 captures the final moments of a man who deliberately jumped into a tiger enclosure at a zoo. The image shows the dangerous proximity between the individual and the large predator, documenting a deliberate act of self-harm that ended fatally. This incident highlighted serious concerns about zoo security measures and the need for better mental health intervention systems to prevent such tragic events. This disturbing photograph captures motel manager James Brock pouring muriatic acid into the Monson Motor Lodge swimming pool in St. Augustine, Florida, during a 1964 civil rights protest. Black and white activists had organized a swim-in to challenge racial segregation at the facility. Brock's dangerous chemical attack on the peaceful protesters became an iconic image of violent resistance to desegregation during the civil rights movement. In 1954, this stark photograph documents the dehumanizing security measures at De Beers diamond mines in Kimberley, South Africa, where black workers were subjected to full-body X-rays at the end of each shift to prevent diamond theft. This invasive procedure exposed miners to dangerous radiation while reinforcing the racial inequalities of apartheid-era labor practices. The image reveals the extreme lengths mining companies took to protect their profits at the expense of worker dignity and health. In the 1920s, this disturbing photograph documents a Ku Klux Klan gathering at Stone Mountain, Georgia, where the second iteration of the KKK held their inaugural meeting in 1915. Dozens of hooded members in white robes participate in a nighttime ceremony among the rocky terrain. Stone Mountain became a symbol of white supremacist movements, later referenced by Martin Luther King Jr. in his "I Have a Dream" speech as a place where freedom should ring, challenging its association with racial hatred. In 1945, this haunting photograph shows British soldiers after their liberation from Japanese prisoner of war camps in Singapore, their severely emaciated bodies revealing the horrific conditions they endured during captivity. The men, reduced to skeletal frames, attempt to maintain normalcy by reading newspapers and sharing tea, displaying remarkable resilience despite their physical deterioration. This image documents the brutal treatment Allied prisoners suffered under Japanese forces during World War II's Pacific Theater. In 1943, this heartbreaking photograph captures Jewish children being led to their deaths at a Nazi concentration camp during the Holocaust. The young victims, some barely old enough to walk, are escorted by guards toward the gas chambers in what represents one of history's most horrific genocides. This image serves as devastating evidence of the systematic murder of approximately 1.5 million Jewish children during World War II, documenting humanity's darkest chapter of organized evil. In 1940, this surreal photograph shows nurses at a London hospital conducting a gas attack drill during World War II, wearing gas masks while carrying babies in protective containers. The scene captures the grim reality of wartime Britain, where even newborns required protection from potential chemical weapon attacks during the Blitz. These rehearsals were essential preparation for hospital staff, ensuring they could evacuate vulnerable patients safely if German forces deployed poison gas against civilian targets. This iconic photograph shows 28-year-old Marcy Borders, a Bank of America employee, covered in dust and debris after fleeing the World Trade Center during the September 11th attacks. Known as the Dust Lady, Borders became one of the most recognizable faces of that tragic day. She took shelter in an adjacent office building following the South Tower's collapse, her ash-covered appearance symbolizing the horror experienced by thousands of survivors. This powerful photograph captures survivors from the 87th floor of the World Trade Center's North Tower, covered in dust and debris after witnessing the collapse of the South Tower on September 11, 2001. The two figures embrace in shock and disbelief, their ash-covered clothing telling the story of their harrowing escape from one of history's most tragic terrorist attacks that forever changed America. This haunting photograph represents the final image captured by photojournalist Bill Biggert, the only member of the press to die while covering the September 11th attacks. Biggert continued documenting the catastrophe even as the towers collapsed around him. demonstrating extraordinary journalistic dedication. His camera and memory cards were recovered from the debris, preserving this last testament to his courage and commitment to bearing witness to history's darkest moments. This devastating photograph captures the initial moments of the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami as massive waves crashed through a coastal resort in Thailand on December 26, 2004. Tourists and locals flee in terror as the deadly wall of water surges inland, destroying everything in its path. This catastrophic natural disaster killed over 230,000 people across 14 countries, making it one of the deadliest tsunamis in recorded history. In 2004, this photograph captures beachgoers on a Thai coast, moments before the devastating Indian Ocean tsunami struck on December 26th. The calm scene shows people enjoying what appeared to be a normal day at the beach, completely unaware that massive waves were approaching. Within minutes of this photo being taken, the deadly tsunami would devastate the coastline, killing over 230,000 people across 14 countries in one of history's most catastrophic natural disasters. This haunting photograph documents the nuclear shadows left on steps in Hiroshima after the atomic bomb detonation on August 6, 1945. The dark silhouette marks where a person was sitting when the intense heat and radiation from the blast permanently burned their shadow into the stone steps. These eerie imprints serve as permanent memorials to the victims and stark reminders of nuclear weapons' devastating power. This haunting photograph shows members of the Dyatlov expedition skiing through harsh winter conditions in the Ural Mountains of Russia in February 1959. 9 experienced hikers mysteriously died during this trek, with their bodies found weeks later under unexplained circumstances. The Dyatlov Pass incident remains one of history's most puzzling, unsolved mysteries, spawning numerous theories about what caused their tragic deaths in the remote wilderness. In 1946, this chilling photograph captures the shadow of a gallows cast against the brick tower at Nuremberg during the war crimes trials that followed World War II. The ominous silhouette represents the ultimate justice awaiting Nazi war criminals found guilty of crimes against humanity. 10 high-ranking officials, including Hermann Göring, were sentenced to death by hanging at these historic proceedings that established international precedent for prosecuting genocide and establishing accountability for state-sponsored atrocities. This striking photograph shows a person inside a futuristic suicide pod designed for assisted dying. The capsule, sleek and enclosed with a transparent dome, allows the user to end their life by filling with nitrogen gas, lowering oxygen levels rapidly. Its modern, sci-fi design contrasts with its haunting purpose, raising profound ethical and social questions. This heartbreaking photograph documents child labor in early 20th century America, showing 3 young girls, Josie and Bertha, both only 6 years old, and 10-year-old Sophie, who worked regularly at the Maggioni Canning Company. Their dirt-stained clothes and weary expressions reveal the harsh reality of industrial exploitation before child labor laws protected minors from dangerous factory work conditions. This tragic photograph documents the severe physical consequences of foot binding, a cultural practice in China from the late 800s through early 1900s. The elderly woman's severely deformed feet show the results of having her bones broken and bound tightly from early childhood to achieve the lotus feet ideal. This painful tradition caused lifelong disability and immobility for millions of Chinese women before being banned in the early 20th century. This remarkable photograph documents Belgian coal miners emerging from underground shafts around 1900. Their faces and clothes blackened with coal dust after a grueling day's work. The multi-level wooden cage elevator system transported dozens of miners simultaneously from the dangerous depths below. These industrial workers faced extreme hazards, including cave-ins, explosions, and lung disease, working in conditions that would later lead to major labor reforms. This disturbing medical photograph documents the severe effects of acute radiation syndrome on a Chernobyl disaster victim, taken at a specialized Soviet clinic after the April 26, 1986 nuclear accident. The patient shows characteristic symptoms of radiation poisoning, including severe skin damage and tissue necrosis. This image represents one of the most devastating consequences of the worst nuclear disaster in history, which exposed hundreds of people to lethal radiation doses. In 1917, this haunting photograph captures a World War I soldier displaying symptoms of shell shock, now recognized as post-traumatic stress disorder. The soldier's vacant expression and thousand-yard stare reflect the psychological trauma experienced by countless men who endured relentless artillery bombardments and trench warfare. This image documents the devastating mental health impact of industrial warfare that military authorities initially dismissed as cowardice rather than legitimate medical conditions. During the Vietnam War, this photograph shows a tunnel rat, a specialized soldier tasked with exploring the extensive Viet Cong underground tunnel networks. These brave soldiers crawled through cramped, dangerous passages to locate enemy positions, weapons caches, and intelligence. The multi-level tunnel systems contained deadly booby traps and armed defenders, making this among the war's most perilous assignments. Only smaller soldiers could navigate these claustrophobic spaces that honeycombed South Vietnam. Every image you've seen today carries secrets that textbooks overlooked and history forgot to mention. If you're fascinated by the untold stories behind familiar faces and forgotten moments, hit subscribe and join us every week as we reveal the hidden narratives captured in history's most powerful photographs. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like this video.